The world is pushed to and on the verge of calamity with the appearance of monsters as well as a monstrous structure in the center of the city. This was recorded as humanity's first encounter with the tutorial tower. It randomly selected and teleported people from around the world and subjected them to harsh ordeals despite their age or physical conditions. From the selection, only 20% of the people that survived are granted special abilities to become the monster hunters, the last hope of humankind. 12 years later, the hunters' popularity reached far and wide and are adored by the public. Despite the hunters' progress, the state is threatened by their great success and imposes regulatory laws on them. This resulted in the creation of the Hunter Guild, an association in Korea to protect hunters from the state. The guild leaders are summoned for an interview on television and are asked about rumors that have spread around the city about a hunter that hasn't escaped the tutorial tower in 12 years. They confirm the rumors about the hunter who hasn't escaped the tower but instead has been repeatedly clearing the 100 levels of it for the past 12 years. They give an account of how powerful the unknown hunter is as well as witnesses who were absorbed into the tower that got a glance of his powers. The hunter's success was no secret. It was aired on television whenever a hunter in any region breaks a milestone. Trainee hunters sent to clear tutorial towers barely manage to make it out alive at the final stage, plus the fact they have to face the final boss at the 100th level, called Balrog. He is a known terrifying monster that has taken the lives of 90% of trainee hunters sent into tutorial towers. We're shown Hyonu, the mystery hunter who has been cursed within the tower, expressing his longing to go home. He recalls the horror that occurred 12 years ago, after defeating the monster but was unable to exit the tower. Instead, was teleported back to the entrance. Hyonu's desperate measures to break his curse proved futile, so he began to get comfortable with his fate by acting as an NPC guide and military instructor to trainee hunters who were absorbed by the tower. The only difference was that he was unable to go home with them. He decided to clear the tower over and over again till one day he received a text that his endless loop had come to an end. He excitedly clears the tower for the last time and passes the portal into the human world, where he celebrates his freedom after 12 years. A week later, the festival for the 18th generation's first assessment began, and news about Hyonu, the advanced player exciting the tower after 12 years, was spread all over the city. The guild leaders who were part of the first generation with Hyonu anticipated his return, so they are present to watch his performance at the assessment test alongside the other 18th generation trainees. At the preparation center, the trainees are given instructions on how to pass through the labyrinth, which serves as their assessment test. The supervisor, however, is struck at Hyonu's carefree personality, and Hyonu makes a bet with him to prove his worth. Hyonu smashes the labyrinth, creating his own path out, shocking the audience who are amazed at Hyonu's raw strength. Taking the assessment test is a promising individual, Kanghyun, who is a kendo master. It is revealed that Kanghyun's plan to take over the spotlight is ruined by Hyonu's appearance, and this made him detest Hyonu. After the assessment, Kanghyun was frustrated that the media and press were only speaking about the explosion made by Hyonu. He vowed to make his name known with his abilities in the next assessment test called the Monster Wave. Kanghyun finished with the highest score on an assessment test, and then it was Hyonu's turn, which the guild leaders and press anticipated. When Hyonu's assessment began, he was so fast that the camera and normal eyes of those that watched couldn't keep up to his movements. He ended the assessment with 3 times more kills than Kanghyun, and this made him detest Hyonu even more. Hyonu is shown a list of guilds that want him by a representative of the guild association, and even offered a 10 billion contract, which he rejects, claiming to live for himself and by his own rules. 5 days into the new hunter protection period, Hyonu finally meets with the first generation guild leaders and is amazed at how grown they've become, also acknowledging that during the past 12 years, he didn't have food in the tower and didn't age. While they catch up with each other's activities from 12 years ago, Hyonu recalls he had a student who was left to rot in the tower by his peers, but was saved by him. He inquired about his student's whereabouts and was thankful he wore a mask while training him. After the meeting, Hyonu is home when he receives a guest from the Aries Guild. It appears that the Aries are the most influential guild in Korea with a monopoly of 66% in all dungeons. What seemed like a proposal from the human resource representative of the Aries Guild soon turns into a threat when he tells Hyonu that he won't be able to survive as a hunter without their guild. The representative's guard, known as a very skilled hunter, ambushes Hyonu for disrespecting his boss, and he is defeated by just a slap of Hyonu's slipper. Later that evening, Sihyun, one of the first generation guild leaders, warns Hyonu about Aries' brutality and the consequences of going against them. Hyonu shoves the Aries topic and asks Sihyun about Adoran's laboratory, which was the next dungeon to be explored in his status window. Sihyun informs Hyonu that raiding a dungeon under Aries' control will further provoke Aries. Hyonu's plan was to know the tower's secret, the person behind it, and the promises to make them suffer as much as he did for 12 years. The next day at a board meeting in the Aries Guild, Hyonu's stats are presented by Yu to the manager in charge, Xiaoni, who is impressed at Hyonu's skills yet decides to discard recruiting him because he had the potential to come after his position as manager. On Yu's way out, he is informed of a disaster occurring at the entrance of Adoran's laboratory. Hyonu is challenged by the guards at the entrance of the dungeon after announcing his motive to raid the dungeon. He single-handedly takes one out with his slipper, completely destroying it, takes the shoes of the other and makes his way to the dungeon. Back at the guild headquarters, Seoyeon confronts Seyun about letting Hyunwoo go into the Ares premises alone, but Seyun defends himself, saying that no one could not exactly stop Hyunwoo if they tried. The hunters in the dungeon had regrouped and were strategizing a plan to defeat Adoron, the boss of the dungeon, when they saw a defenseless Hyunwoo strolling in. Adoron was a mad scientist and monster that treated hunters as test subjects for his experiments. While blabbing on about his greatness, Hyunwoo annihilates him with a single kick, and the hunters that spectated the scene had their jaws dropped in awe after seeing the advanced player's skills in person. Yu gives the order based on Seoni's command that Hyunwoo be taught a lesson for messing with the Ares Guild, and Wu promises to do more than that after checking Hyunwoo's ratings. His plan was to make him bleed. Wu also discusses about another problem on their hands, the new guild formed called Pado. Pado is being praised for its massive success as well as its monstrous abilities of its high-ranking members. What's more striking about Pado is the anonymous identity of its leader, who is an S-ranked hunter and rated top 5 globally. This makes Ares see Pado as a threat and plans to eliminate it. Seyun welcomes Hyunwoo home and gives him a phone to aid their communication. While Hyunwoo is fascinated with his new tech, Seyun gives him an update about the next dungeon, which was located on his axis, and that the boss there was destroyed but will be generated in 2 days, and he also advises Hyunwoo to register for the Hunters Grade Association to be able to receive perks and money. Seyun and Hyunwoo arrive at the next dungeon on Hyunwoo's list, and they are accompanied by Gammon, whose job is to collect materials dropped by the dungeon's boss. Seyun explained to Hyunwoo that the materials are used to make weapons and armory, so they are collected and sold in the market for millions. Hyunwoo discards the map to the boss maze given to him by Seyun and goes head-to-head with the boss, destroying him while Gammon streams it live in awe. Unknown to them, they were being stalked by an anonymous man in the woods. It is revealed that the anonymous stalker was sent by Wu, and he reports his observations to him in the office that evening. The man also declares he figured out a way to defeat the advanced player and planned to ambush him on his way to the dungeon. Hyunwoo arrives at the swamp in view, his last quest on his status window, and senses something was off. After receiving a text from Seoyeon and caution from Seyun, he promises to defeat his foes no matter what happens. He single-handedly defeats the guards of the dungeon and makes his way for the boss of the dungeon. While he engages in an excruciating battle with the boss that seemed hard to kill, the fight is manipulated by the anonymous man, who places a chain spell that seizes Hyunwoo to the ground, ready to be bait for the monster. Hyunwoo dodges impact with the monster, and the anonymous man finally reveals himself and his intentions to Hyunwoo. Hyunwoo acknowledges him as a hitman sent to murder him from Ares, but seemed unfazed by his big talk, and this upsets the man. Hyunwoo tried to break the chains, but they remained intact, and the man reveals that the chains used to bind him are made from magic and can only be broken by magic, also taking into account that Hyunwoo possessed no magic, so it was the best way to annihilate him. The hitman charges as Hyunwoo with his magic and was shocked to see that Hyunwoo was unfazed by it, as his magic was impenetrable to Hyunwoo's body. Hyunwoo escapes the magic chains and sends the hitman flying into the lake of the beast, killing the hitman and the beast at the same time. After Hyunwoo's success, the status window reports to him that his task has been completed and the minimum requirements to upgrade his window have been met. At the Ares base, the hitman's death is reported to Wu, and the fact that a double S-ranked hunter lost to Hyunwoo made him boil with anger. Back home, Hyunwoo tests out his new skill on Seyun but is frustrated at the turnout despite the work he put in. He then receives a notification that made him feel it counted for something. It was an invitation to be a temporary guardian. He hoped through the invitation he'd be able to get more information about the tower. At the end of the countdown, his subconscious is taken over and is transferred to a small room where he meets with a girl called AV, who introduces herself as his assistant guardian. Hyunwoo is elated and pumped to finally get answers about his 12 years imprisonment in the tutorial tower, but is later frustrated because AV could not give him answers because his level of status scan was too low. Despite being unable to give him answers, she gives him a tip that he would be able to increase his status scan and become a real guardian if he obtains a key in the upcoming rift that happens in the next 5 days. Seyun tells Hyunwoo that the rift coming in the next 5 days indicates an impending day of doom. That was the end of part 1 of the advanced player of the tutorial tower. Thank you for watching, and if you want me to make part 2, then please comment down below. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe and hitting the bell icon so you get our channel's posts as soon as they get published.